Well, we try to get this started again, and after months there is a new episode of the Random 2, and we'll start with interesting topic. It's about John Kirk Townsend, an American naturalist and ornithologist that is a scientist who specializes in the study of birds, and he's most renowned for undertaking an expedition in 1833 to the Oregon Territory at the Pacific coast of the United States. And now you gotta know, Oregon became a state of the United States only in 1859. So in 1833, when he undertook this expedition, it was still a very unknown territory. And so on his way there, he also he found and discovered a lot of species that were not known before. Many birds, also squirrels, insects, and so on. So, and to give you an impression of how unknown these territories really were at that point, let's briefly talk about the famous Lewis and Clark expedition. Yeah, the Lewis and Clark expedition was in 1803, and it was right after the Louisiana Purchase, when the United States bought an immense, like nearly a quarter of what is now the United States, from France, and that was in 1803, and this expedition was also, the Lewis and Clark expedition was also in 1803, and it was, quote, to determine exactly what was obtained in the Louisiana Purchase. So the United States just went for it. You know, they spent $15 million for buying that huge chunk of land from France, and they didn't even know what they were really getting. They first had to do an exploration to, because obviously not even the French knew what was in there, what's in Louisiana. So it's kind of like an old school marriage, you know, when you marry a woman without ever having slept with her. So you only know what you get after you buy it. But anyways, I've got some interesting. I did some interesting calculations, or actually you did those calculations. So maybe you want to talk about them. Yes, thank you. So the Louisiana Purchase in 1803 cost the United States 15 million US dollars, and the territory acquired is 23% of today's United States. So if you do the calculations, that means for all of the United States of today, they would have had to pay 65 million US dollars. And now let's do a comparison. The Alaska Purchase, when the United States bought Alaska from Russia, that was for $7.2 million, and the Alaska Territory represents 16% of today's United States. So that means if we extrapolate from the Alaska Purchase, that all of the United States would cost $45 million. So in the Louisiana Purchase, $65 million for all of the United States. If we do the calculation, in the Alaska Purchase, only $45 million. And the Alaska Purchase was in 1867. So over 60 years after the Louisiana Purchase. So, and we can assume that the US dollar was worth more earlier on. So the United States would have been much more expensive during the Louisiana Purchase than during the Alaska Purchase. That means the United States became cheaper. How does that make sense? And by a lot, you know, 65 million in 1803 versus 45 million in 1867. Well, I can think of several reasons. One would be, for example, Alaska, because, being out north, being very cold, they didn't probably know about the oil there yet, so it might have been considered worth less than the southern United States. Or also, the French were just smarter than the Russians, and they were harder to bargain with. Well, maybe, since it's about Alaska, maybe we can ask Sarah Palin. Maybe she knows. Well, yeah, I'll ask her.